And you've talked about it being so different from everything, but that came on the Don't Say No record. Why didn't you find something else that sounded like it, was emotional like it? Because it does stand apart from the rest of the work.
Well, because that song came about when I wasn't really looking for something. It was a very a natural evolution from hanging around with John Lennon, in the vicinity of John Lennon in the Dakota, and having that thought spring into my mind that nobody knows what that guy's life is really about. That we all think we do from what we read and from how we analyze his songs. But I see him go into his apartment, and you don't know what's going on in that apartment or in his head. And so it was. What I'm saying is, I didn't sit. With most of my songs, I don't sit down and say, well, what am I going to find to write about? It's usually what finds me. The song, and that's why if I don't write a lot or go through periods where I don't write a lot, it's because nothing is affecting me in a way that I feel passionate enough or involved enough that I want to do it. And that nobody knows. I had this sort of light go on in my head and go, oh, this is a great song. And I said, nobody knows what he's and I went, that's the title of the song. And and then I wrote it. Naturally, it followed. The lyrics followed from that premise. That's a lot of my writing process. It's not formulaic. I have a formula, but it is not the kind of thing which some people do where you say, I'm going to write 4 hours a day. I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to go work out, and I'm going to go and I'm going to write. I don't do that.
So you never had that discipline in that? You just never had that sort of discipline for writing?
I had my own kind of discipline. No, for instance, before I was Billy Squier, before I was a successful Billy Squier, trying to become Billy Squier. Yeah, sure I did, because I'm struggling and I'm constantly writing and trying to come up with the goods, so to speak. Once I became Billy Squier, then the discipline was became focused. I'd come off the road. I'm going to make a record. I know that. So for the 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, whatever I've been on the road, every day at sound check or when I'm tuning a guitar or something and I get a good riff, I record it. If I'm in a taxi cab and I get an idea for a song or a hook or something, I write it down. So I would accumulate all these bits and pieces, never have it doing writing sessions, but just accumulating like pictures in a puzzle. And then I come to write the record, and I would take all these things out and literally like sit on the floor, and go through all this stuff and go, that's good, and that's not moving me. Oh, this hook would go great with this riff, blah, and that's partly why I could write those records so fast. Don't Say No I wrote in 2 weeks, Emotions I wrote in 2 weeks, because I had all this stuff assembled, and there was a discipline, but it's not. It was sort of organically based, shall we say? It was never. I was never going to the office. And I still live my life that way, which is why people get frustrated with me, because they say, "Why don't you make another record?" I say, "Well, I don't like the business that much. I'm not that motivated by it, so I don't do it. I don't feel that I've lost the ability to do it. I'm just not interested." But people say, "Oh, you can do it though. Come on, go in the studio and do it." I say, "That's it's not organic to me. That's forcing it. I won't do that."
Do you use computers and whatnot now?
To make music?
No, well, to just keep those organic notes, if you will.
No, to be honest, I'm not making that many notes now either, because my life has gone a different direction since I kind of got out of the business. So I don't have that much impetus to do it. So I'm keeping my notes pretty. Some of it's on computer, but I don't have reams of stuff right now. So some of it's on. I have notebooks. People give me books all the time to try to stimulate me to write. So I have these beautiful leather-bound, engraved, writing books which have two lines written on them, and I've had it for a year. But I appreciate the effort. I like being pushed. I think for people to express interest to me about doing it is certainly something which I appreciate and I welcome it. It makes me feel good. But I still feel like I'll only do it at my own, my own pace, and as the urgency directs me.
So let's talk about getting out of the business. You say it that way, but was it really a choice, or did you feel like you were forced out, or that was just your life cycle in the business?
No, it was a choice. It was a choice. I mean, my label was making it very difficult for me, obviously, to continue in a productive relationship. But I didn't have to leave. I had a binding contract. It was my choice to settle with them and get out because I didn't want to work with them.
Right.
I said, why do I want to work with people who want to basically ruin my career? You know? So that really took me by surprise. I having grown up in the business, I never thought the business would beat me because I understood it. You know, I didn't think I was bigger than the business, but I knew how it worked, and I felt like I know the rules. I can play by the rules, and I've done well. But those people, they knew who they are. You know, they did things which I considered despicable to me or any other artist who commits themselves the way we do to our careers. So that really turned me off. I just, I didn't even go looking for another deal after that. It was such a bombshell, such a disheartening and shocking experience that I just basically said, that's it, I am gone. And I did. And it's, I've really never come back.
Well, does it hurt? I guess it hurt me when I left some sort of the business that I thought, okay, these people are my friends, but they stopped returning my phone calls.
Well, they're not your friends. That's what you find out. They don't care at all. They only care about you as long as you're making them money.
Man.
And it's gotten worse since then, obviously, because our whole culture is so commoditized and commercialized now that everything is about money, wherever you are. Which is very, very dismal forecast for the arts. Although this will change,
Yes.
things. The pendulum swings back and forth, and we have all those cliches. It's always darkest before the dawn, and all that. And there are great musicians and great artists and great thinkers out there, and they're not going to stop existing because of the way things are now. But it's we're having a little difficulty, I think, finding our way at this point.
So you write The Stroke, which I'm presuming is about the business,
absolutely,
especially at that point in your career.
Absolutely.
But do you miss that? I mean, what do you miss most about it? Because, who doesn't want to be stroked? Who doesn't want to be told that they're the greatest thing since the Beatles? How about that? But you know what I mean? I mean, it's is there something that...
I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I don't miss it. I get enough, stuff which is real from fans, stuff coming through the website or at shows and things like that, and those people are real. And I go with that. I still have that. Let me put it this way. I still have that. So it's still there for me in a way that's more genuine.
I want to stay with Capital 1078. First line off the whole record is "Life isn't easy on the singular side," but you've remained single, yes?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm still rather singular, but I'm not single. I do well on my own, but
okay.
No, I've been married almost 6 years now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
took a while, but I come from a real, kind of traditional conservative New England background, and one of the things I got in my head was that I was going to get married once. So it took,
good job.
I didn't want to screw up. I figured I better wait until I find the right person, or else I was going to, go against my mandate. But I don't think it's great to be practicing marriage in term. I've been married 4 times.
Right.
It's like, I'd rather try to get it right the first time. But the thing about that is that you can't practice because marriage, it's a commitment. So how if you walk out, you didn't do it right. You got to, and it's not always great, that's for sure. But I feel like, well, if I wasn't ready or willing to try to really live up to what that means, I shouldn't have done it. So, I'm a pretty responsible person. I get, in situations which have implied responsibility, I take pride in being responsible. So I say, well, we're going to, I believe that if we keep going along, and we're not in a troubled relationship, but I mean, that the value in the relationship builds over time, and you talk to people you're married 40 years, and so, that's and I makes sense. And you look back, and you have a legacy. You've built something. It's not about how great it is today; it's what you get through, and I think all of the challenges you meet, and the storms you weather, and all that stuff. So, and also I think like, if I felt I'm unhappy in my marriage, and okay, I go out and get divorced, blah blah. Who's to say I go find someone else and it's great for 2 years and I don't end up having,
Right. Sure.
another set of problems with that person. I think it's always going to exist. It isn't about finding the perfect person where everything is, you live in an idealized world.
Well, were you practical about that when you were Mr. Rockstar, thinking, you know what, I want to get married once, and now is not the time because now is my time. You know what I mean?
I think if the person had been, I had several long-term relationships.
Okay.
And I think if I had felt it was the right person, and no disrespect to these women, because I had relationships with some great women, but a lot of it was kind of a gut and feeling like, well, I want this to work, but it's not quite working, and so I'm going to try, and I would try, but if it didn't feel like it, if it felt like there was some sort of fundamental issue or something that didn't fit, without labeling myself a perfectionist. I just kind of, it was an intuitive thing, I would say. It's not quite right. It just isn't quite right.
What about kids?
Lots of godchildren. I've been really fortunate that I have a lot of friends who, for better or worse, have felt that I would be a good person to look after their kids if they weren't around. And so I have a whole bunch, and from now, is the youngest one's 11 now, and the oldest one is 24, and
wow.
And some of them I've been really fortunate that I've really grown up with them since they were babies and been around a lot. So I've had some great exposure to kids. In some ways, ideal exposure, because I can be with them and have and experience all the joy and still take them home to their parents after a day or two.
I hear a lot of grandparents saying that too. The song off Happy Blue too. I thought it was a beautiful song. About seeing hope through the child, right?
Yeah, I wrote that for Harrison, who was one of my favorite kids.
Really?
Yeah, and I wrote it for his second birthday.
It is amazing what you can see in and through children, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, they change your world.
Yeah.
I mean, he was responsible for me writing Happy Blue, because that was about 3 years after I left Capitol. I hadn't picked up a guitar. I didn't. I was out doing other stuff.
Seriously?
And,
Never picked up a guitar?
No. And he was born, and I don't know. His mother said to me one day, around this time. Oh, I know what it was. When he was 2, I wrote a poem for him. Right. I came back. I saw him on his birthday. I came home that night and I wrote that. I just sat down. It just came to me. And I just wrote it. No music. I wasn't even thinking about a song. I just wrote it. And so then I gave it to his mother, so that he would have it. And she said, she was an ex-girlfriend of mine. She was with me through a lot of the music stuff. She knew my process a little bit. And she said, why don't you write a song? Why don't you write a song about it? I'm like, whatever. Because I wasn't into it at all. And sometime after that, maybe it might have been a week, might have been 2 weeks, I don't know. I was in my house by myself, and I was just sitting at the dining room table, and I just thought, I'm going to pick up a guitar and see. And I had the lyrics, and it's not written in a standard musical format. And I just started playing, and that came out. And when I did it, I can remember feeling what people say to me all the time is, it's so amazing you can write a song. How do you do it? It comes out of nowhere, And I did it, and I had chills. I was like, I haven't written a song in 3-4 years, and I felt, it was like a new thing, and I went, wow, this is an incredible gift. And then I thought, okay, what can I do with this? And I did sort of set myself. I found a platform, which was at the time, a lot of people were sampling records and making records out of artificial bits and pieces, and everybody, and it's all just junk, that was out, and there was no soul, no passion, and nobody playing.
Yeah.
You didn't have to play. So I thought, why don't I try to make an acoustic record? Mm-hmm. Just me and a guitar, no overdubs, and can I come up with stuff that I could play for you in your living room that might entertain you without any of the other, bells and whistles and stuff, and make a statement that some of us still play. Mm-hmm. And so that's where Happy Blue came from, and it really came from my relationship with Harrison.
In the Pursuit of Happiness off that record?
Yep.
Is that almost Learn How to Live? You know what I mean? Just looking at the, reading through them and going, okay, here's
you could say
here's
that.
The steps that take us to.
Yeah, you could say that. I didn't think about it, but it certainly could be looked at as a sequel of sorts. Yeah.
In Inferno is the other song on that record that I really connected with. about, well, I guess life is just tough.
Well, that song is actually very unique to me. That was not written in the way I usually write songs. I was studying Dante's Inferno in New York. I just wanted to do it. I was taking a course in it, and it's an amazing poem. It's the whole trilogy is just spectacular.
Really?
But when I was doing that, I thought, I wonder if I could put Inferno into a song, and that's it.
Wow.
And that's where those lyrics come from, the references. All that stuff is, it works on its own without that as a backdrop, but that's referencing what I consider to be the key points of Dante's Inferno. And I gave it to my professor when I was done. And he was an old guy who's been teaching us for a long time, and he was definitely not a rock and roller. And I gave it to him, and he was almost moved to tears. No, he thought. He genuinely. He said, "This is an incredible effort." And he said, "You really got it." It wasn't for the class. I just did it, and I gave it to him. But it's interesting. As I said, it works on both levels. You don't need to know that to have it be effective. But I think the lyrics are incredibly powerful because I'm taking from one of the most powerful poets of any era.
Well, I assume when somebody is that dedicated to what they love, they can tell when somebody else loves it, no matter how it comes through.
Yeah, it comes through.
It comes through. So reading through, quote unquote, all the lyrics, I think you use the word lonely frequently. Is that
you probably know better than I?
Fair, okay. But what I was thinking about was, I wonder if you use it, quote unquote, frequently, because it's just a feeling you just don't want to be a part of. I mean, has loneliness been a part of your life that you've thought, this is no way to live?
Well, I've spent a lot of time alone.
Which is different than lonely, I believe.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
I don't think of myself, if I were going to say that if there's an aspect of loneliness in my life, I'd have to say that it somewhat is again by choice, because I do like my solitude, and I spend a good amount of time. I like to have time to myself, but I wouldn't describe myself as being a lonely person, because I'm actually quite happy when I'm alone. Or let me say that another way. That I've had a developing relationship with nature over the years, the past 10, 15 years. And I spend a lot of time working with trees and gardening and in the company of trees and shrubs and little animals, and away from the world that we've created, the human creation, which we think is reality. Ha ha. And I'm very happy in that. Learning to live more at the pace of the real world, to me, is very calming, and I'm quite happy in those situations. Whenever I'm out in those situations, I'm very much at peace with myself, and I really enjoy being on the planet, which I can't always say when I'm back in the quote unquote real world.
But you're doing a lot of that in Central Park, where there are noises all around you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about moving out in the middle of the state of New York?
No, because then I couldn't have Central Park. I mean,
yeah.
Nobody has what I have there. I mean, they've given me this incredible opportunity. I mean, Central Park is the greatest park in the world, and it's run by the greatest conservators, and the people who are in charge of that are so passionate and visionary about what they're doing, that to be able to be involved with them is a privilege that I would not like to lose. And it's interesting you asked. So I think about moving out. One of the reasons I don't move out is because of that relationship.
Really?
Yeah, I really think that I'm not prepared to walk away from the park quite yet.
What is gardening? I mean, I guess, when did you discover gardening, and what has it taught you about life? Or a lot
of it's what it's I just told you a lot of what it's taught me is that there's a world outside what we consider the world of man is very different than the natural world, which is far far greater and vaster.
Yeah, I was thinking more about the growth, how you have to tend to it, and
well, you learn.
But, you know.
Well, you learn. You have to take. You don't make a tree. You have to deal with the tree. The tree does what it wants to do. Okay, and you. So all you can do is take it for what it is. Like you could say with a person in a relationship or something. You can work with it. You might modify it a little. You might direct it a little bit. But it's going to be who it is. The tree's going to be what it is. So that's one lesson. You have to learn patience. You know that you can't have something grow necessarily right when you want or how you want. But given time, you can reach positions where you can achieve you can set goals and you can achieve them. So patience you learn, acceptance you learn.
And how did you discover it? I mean, it isn't a typical rock and roll.
Oh no,
hobby.
I wasn't into it at all. I mean, you know, the closest I got to gardening was when I was a kid. My father would make me cut the grass before he'd let me go out with my friends. You know, so no, I had no interest in it at all. But about 20 years ago, when I bought my house in Long Island, it was an opportunity. The house was an opportunity. The property was a mess. But the house was, was something which I thought this would be a good thing to pick up right now. It'd be a good thing to have, and I'll figure out the property, later. And I did. I started doing it, and it just grew. I mean, it just again came from nothing. I had no idea that I would be having this conversation now, or that I would be working in the park. But it was all an evolving process, which is another thing too. That things do evolve, and you don't control the evolution. Things are going to go a certain way, and it's good if you could sort of get on for the ride.
Yes. So do you think of yourself, do you think about the environment? Do you think about the chemicals and whatnot that you guys use to, or fertilizers and whatnot that you guys use in the park? I mean,
in the park, it's very conscious of it. I'm somewhat less conscious of it in my own property, because if there's something that I want to do, I'll do it. But So there's I'm not 100% environmentally friendly, but I try to do as much as I can. I mean, I'm aware of it, and I do.
I just assume
I certainly do my bit. Let's put it that way.
Well, working with the earth, I mean, there's a oneness to it. You understand that we're all in this together. I guess. I hope. Is it a spiritual thing for you too? I mean, do you
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think that this whole thing is, the natural world is is the presence of a great spirit. Whatever you want to call it, whoever, whatever. There is something out there that's way bigger than us, and something we will probably never understand. And it's manifested in all of, even in us.
Yeah.
It's a wide range of events and characters that we have in our existence, and they're not. Again, it's. I don't believe necessarily in the vision of heaven or like that. There's this beautiful place where everything is fine. I mean,
they're not a beautiful garden.
There's good. There's bad. There are a lot of sides to life, and there are a lot of there's you wouldn't have happiness without unhappiness, and all those sort of these dichotomies which exist and reinforce each other. So that's all part of it. And again, I think it's important to try to embrace that. I think that the Eastern philosophies are a lot better than the Western religions, because there is this idea of trying to cohabit and accept and be empathetic.
Yeah, there's a part of me that I thought maybe I would be more at peace, or at least more understanding of whatever the world is out there, just because when I was a kid growing up, I was, oh, wow, look at all these people. They've got their life together and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there's plenty of times where I still feel like a kid when I'm searching for whatever the answers are, the big ones out there. When I'm searching through, CDs galore for answers to life, and everybody else is reading, thick books and biblical stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I really sense some real truth here and here and here. And I guess I think truth is truth. You can't really fight that. I don't know.
It's hard. It's hard to say. You try to reach your own vision of your own truth, and hopefully base it on something which is bigger than you. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately a lot of people don't do that. I think that that it starts and ends with them.
Well, I think you use love a lot in your lyrics, of course, but when you're using a bigger sort of love, if you will, rather than a rock me tonight love, if you know what I mean, various levels of love. So, but like love is the hero, that's how we change, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big, broad, dramatic statement.
Well, sure. But there's something that resonated in you when you wrote it.
Absolutely. Oh no, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's a very very powerful statement, and I believe it.
And working with Freddie Mercury, what did he teach you?
The greatest. He was the greatest. Taught me to have confidence in myself above anything else. Taught me to be myself and to recognize what I had and not be afraid.
Mm-hmm. Were you good enough? Did you have a relationship enough with him that you knew what he was going through before people like me knew?
Yeah. Not as much. I wasn't in the, the innermost circle, but
right.
Yeah, I was aware of what was going on.
Well, let me jump to a couple other songs off. Let me go to Creatures of Habit. Well, why name it that? I guess I thought that was a really interesting.
I honestly don't even know it. I mean, I don't know now.
Okay.
I think at the time, I felt the same thing that you're feeling. It's interesting, and we've just been talking about that to a degree,
yep.
or alluding to it. That we are creatures of habit. We grow up, we develop things very early in our lives from the families that we're in and the influences that we have, and oftentimes don't have the ability or the will to understand where we come from, and we end up acting out a lot of, or reenacting a lot of bits and pieces from our earlier life. So I think Creatures of Habit was an apt title, but I didn't have anything more specific in mind that I could tell you now.
I don't mean to involve the two songs because they're not necessarily about the same subject, but like Nerves on Ice.
I knew you were going to mention that song.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a Karnak moment.
Oh,
I was going to say Nerves on Ice. I have no idea why.
It's fun and Young at Heart, but I just wondered if you want to talk about that specifically about the song, but I just wonder when you're writing those songs, is it the same way a Rock Me Tonight comes to you, or is it something like, wow, you know what? This is something I'm struggling with, or I see somebody struggling with it, and that's what inspired you to go to that place.
Oh, no, it's not one or the other. It's usually a combination. It's always something that I feel, or have direct experience with. But sometimes I've written songs that have been observational. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, to me, I always am going to try to write a song which taps the collective unconsciousness. Where you're talking about truth, where I want to write where my truth is your truth. Or my observation, what I'm talking about, everybody can feel. That's right. So that's going to be a thread that hopefully runs through most of the songs that I write.
Christmas is the time to say I love you. I think it's interesting that isn't it a Hallmark song? Or?
Yeah, for years. Yeah, it is. I have crossed into the mainstream of Middle America, which I thought was kind of cool. Yeah, but I wrote it as a standard. I wrote it one day as a standard. I just felt like writing a Christmas song, and I wanted to write a rock Christmas song. So, that's why it sounds the way it does. But the lyric is very traditional, and Hallmark's used it for years.
So, do they come to you, or do you have people go to them and say, "Hey, you know what? I think."
No, they came to me.
Yeah, and you just have people represent you that. Yeah, you work out the deal.
Yeah, no, I have good people doing.
And is
that
the same way when they use samples when rappers use samples?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So you do see. I'll just say revenue because I don't.
Absolutely,
you do, and that is part of your decision to let them use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great thing about owning your publishing. You get people come. It'll last for as long as people want to use it.
And so you've owned it. So you still see every time the song gets played, you get whatever minimal cents. But but that.
It's one of the greatest lessons I learned when I was getting into music. That a lawyer named Nat Weiss, who actually used to take care of the Beatles here in America, and is still a friend of mine, said to me when I was like 23 years old, he said, I didn't even have a deal. He said, I'm going to tell you this, don't forget it. He said, don't give up your publishing.
Yeah. Well,
And
a lot of
I have a
artists
big
did.
thanks always goes out to Nat for that. No, I could tell you horror stories of people who I've tried to get to, warned them about it, and people who have just lost, not everything, but substantially everything because they let someone take that away, and it's, it really should be yours.
So you're born in Massachusetts, live in New York, Red Sox fan, Yankees fan?
Red Sox.
Well, you've had a good couple of years then, huh?
I like the Yankees too. There's no reason I can't like both. It's not territorial.
But can you actually say that publicly?
I aligned with the Red Sox right before they won their first pennant, and had to sit through the first 3 games when they promptly went down 3.
Oh,
That was the first year I took a stand, and I said to my wife, the Red Sox haven't won this in 96 years or whatever. We're gonna take a stand. And she went out and bought a couple of shirts, and we put them on. They lost the first 3 games.
Thanks a lot.
And I said, well, we got to stick it out. And we said, put them on for Game 4, and that and that was the beginning of it. So.
Oh my gosh! I mean, unbelievable.
You don't want to play. You don't want to play against the Red Sox in the World Series.
And have you been to Yankee Stadium plenty of times? I mean, that's
oh yeah,
last year.
I like the. I mean, the Yankees are a great dynasty, and they have great teams. And it's not like I said. It's not one of the. I don't hate the Yankees. I like the Yankees, but I'm really a soccer fan. My wife was a German professional, and I've become a soccer fanatic. Over the last.
So you just watched the World Cup?
Yeah, and I went to England for the finals of the Premier League, and Man
cool.
United and Chelsea. I really love that. That was a game which I really just discovered, and very different from American sports. But that's another discussion. But it's really got that's where my interest lies in the sports.
I am completely amazed at how much those guys have to run for how long they have to run. I mean, it
10
is
miles a day, a game, 10 miles a game.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they do. Somebody's there clicking away, or so I don't know how they do it, but they'll put them up sometimes on the on the TV screen. They'll go, so I just ran 9.5 miles, just going out of the game.
Lord. I did not know that.